Welcome to another episode of Deep Mountain Security. So real quick here, I've got a little test machine here that we're going to play around with today. I'm going to kind of go over some of the different features of Windows Task Manager. This is just a little virtual machine I've got here. You can see I've got VMware tools running over here and the VMware bar up here because it's running in VMware. You guessed it, yay! Alright, so a couple different ways to open Task Manager. I'm going to show you, there's several different ways you can open it up. The first way I'm going to use, is I find it the fastest, is left control, left shift, left escape on your keyboard. Opens up a nice little Task Manager right here. And this is the Windows 10 Task Manager. So the first thing it's going to show us is any applications that are currently running. So if I open up Microsoft Edge, it's just going to show Microsoft Edge. And so these are generally applications that you can actually see clear as day on your desktop or down here in your taskbar. So we're not going to worry too much about that. So I closed it out. That should disappear here in a second. As it did, we're going to get into a little bit more depth of details here in a second. So another thing is I just want to show you where Task Manager is actually located. So if you navigate to your C drive here, it's actually in your Windows folder and then in your System 32 folder. Now there's a lot of stuff in here. Don't delete it if people tell you to, because that's a bad idea. So it's actually taskmgr.exe. It's a little application right here, and you can open it up from right there. So if it's closed already, it'll open it. Task Manager doesn't like to have more than one open, so we can't really open more than them. We might try some experiments in PowerShell another day, but that's for another day. So we've got Task Manager this way. If you do the Windows key and then R on your keyboard, you can open a little run box in which you can type taskmgr for Task Manager, which will also do that. So if I close it out again, taskmgr, it will open it up. Fantastic. Now if you are in any kind of a command prompt window, so I just type cmd as command prompt, cmd.exe. You can also type taskmgr.exe and it will open up Task Manager. Or you don't have to use the exe, and it knows what Task Manager is and will open it up. And we've got one task running. Also, if you are running PowerShell, there we go. taskmgr.exe, or just we can taskmgr, and voila, Task Manager. So there's a bunch of different ways you can open different applications, and this applies to a lot of different applications that we're going to be covering in the Windows workspace. But anyways, so I'll open up Task Manager and let's get a little bit more in depth into it. Alright, so I open up the more details. This is what I always look at when I use the Windows Task Manager. There are other alternative task managers I will cover another day that I think have great value. But so this one, I'm just going to quickly go over some of the different things you can see. So the first thing, these are processes. Now these aren't like process details like you find in older versions of Windows Task Manager. These are the actual processes, along with some helpful statistics about your processor usage, memory usage, disk utilization, and network usage. And these can be helpful for troubleshooting applications that might be holding up your entire computer. You can actually sort by these different applications. So I can sort by CPU time, and so these are the ones that are using the most, and these are the ones that are using the least. And then up top it'll have the total of everything. So that 13% right there, or whatever it's changing to, is going to match what we're seeing over here in this little percentage bar over here, or this percentage bar right there. So these are everything. So each one of these tasks can have multiple children tasks or child tasks underneath it. And then these are generally your more detailed items that like you would see over here, but they might also include other things that aren't necessarily processes, such as services, as you can see with some of these service managers here that manage different things on the Windows system. We won't get too terribly in depth into what half of these are doing right now, but you can see there's quite a lot of these, and they all do different things. So there's processes. Performance, this is general statistics about your computer, but not too in-depth. If you want really in-depth statistics, you can go down here and open the resource monitor, which in this case you can utilize things and show different graphs, and there's like all kinds of cool stuff you can do in here, and you can just like browse through things and then just do all kinds of really fun things, and we'll get to this another day. If you really want to, let me know in the comments below so we can make sure we get to it sooner rather than later. The more comments we have about a particular topic, the more likely it is to be featured in a sooner rather than later video. So performance, you can see all the different things, and these are always helpful to know. Oh, we're using, not very much RAM. That's kind of nice, or whatever. I didn't really give it a lot of RAM, so not worried about that. Anyhow, so app history, this really isn't like super useful unless you really care about your Windows apps themselves. So for example, it'll show me how much I've used different CPU processing times. So Cortana starts up when you start up Windows, alarm, or when you first install Windows, alarms and clock, that's a given. So it'll show you how much CPU time everyone's used. So if I go above Microsoft Edge again, then this is going to increase eventually. So you can see it's already decided that it's used more CPU time. Interesting, huh? And notice that these aren't actually in seconds. These are actually how much time this application is using on the processor. So if I was to open a lot more tabs here, so let me quickly open up a lot of tabs. That's a lot of tabs. You notice it's probably going to start using up more CPU time at a faster rate. And your larger applications are going to use more of this CPU time because they're using up more processing power. So the way a CPU works, when you are sending tasks through your CPU, it has an algorithm which it uses to decide which tasks get which priority. And then, it only needs so many clock cycles. So this is actually a measurement in, it's not technically clock cycles, it's actually physically time spent on the processor. However, that can be equated to clock cycles if you want to do some fancy math or whatever. We're not going to do any math or anything, just because I feel like doing something basic right now. But you can notice that it's really using a lot there, and then if I go close it out, it's all going to disappear. Or, well, it's going to stop ticking up, and this little orange bars, well, it's going to stay there. But anyways, so yeah, this is calculating how much processor time. So if you have applications that are maybe need a higher priority in the processor, they should be taking up more processor time than other less needed apps. But these are just Windows applications, so not terribly useful since it's not displaying statistics here for other applications that maybe aren't on this list. So you'll see that all these have the little Windows square because they are Windows apps, as they are called. And we could always reset this if we wanted to. Startup, these are things that are going to turn on every single time I start up my computer. There's a couple other ways to go through startup, and if you want a particular video on doing and managing your startup applications and files and whatnot, and to see what's starting up where and what controls what starts up on your computer, then go ahead and let me know in the comments below. I'll make sure to do a video on that as well. So there's a couple different applications here. So you'll notice that every time I'm going to turn on my computer, we're going to get Windows Defender, VMware Tools, and OneDrive. So for example, if I wanted to not have this, then I could just go over here and click Disable, or you can right-click and click Enable or Disable. It'll show. And you notice there's a couple other options. You can search online, and that'll open up Microsoft Edge or whatever other application you choose. If you have Chrome installed, you can open it up in Chrome. But then it'll go onedrive.exe and the name of the software itself, and then you can take a look at it and go, oh, is this safe or is it not? And this is safe, so I'm not worried about it. And that's a video for another day, what is safe and what is not, I suppose. Like I said, security is a broad topic and it covers so many things, so let me know what you guys want. So that's your startup thing, and you can sort by what uses more startup impact than everything else. Let's go over to users. You can see I'm logged in as admin. That's the name I chose when I opened it up, and you can see every single process that's currently, oh, that's lovely, right? We totally want Xbox right now. But you can see everything that's currently running from my admin credentials. And when I say running from my admin credentials, not everything on this list is running from my admin credentials. You can see there's a couple of different usernames here, and we'll get into that in a second. But so if I go back to this list, these are things that my Windows credentials have started. When I log into Windows, essentially is what it's doing is it generates a signature based off of my login or authentication credentials and uses that signature every time it opens up a application through that needs my credentials. Not everything needs my credentials. For example, I'm not going to be logged in when the Windows is booting, so it's going to need something else for when it boots, because we need to be able to have a logon screen before I can log into the computer. However, I can't authenticate the logon screen because I need to log in before I can authenticate against anything. So anyways, now on to details. We've got a couple different things. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger here and kind of adjust some of these so we can see a little bit more of what is going on here. All right. Okay. So you can see we've got a couple different columns. This is going to be the name of the application. Usually it's .exe or .msi or something similar, or it can, in interesting specific system related things, it might not have a .exe associated with it. And there might be a couple other exceptions too, so don't get too caught up about that. PID, this is the processor identification number, and we'll show you exactly. So this is an identification number that is assigned to this specific process running on your processor, and this is going to be unique for every single thing on here. Now we've got status, it's running. So some of these might be in a suspended status. There's a couple different status. This really isn't too important unless you're wondering, is this actually running and consuming clock cycles right now? Doesn't really look like it. It's probably suspended, not really doing much, but it's still using memory. So it's like a sleeping process, you might say. Username. So right here you can see we've got a couple different usernames. I'm just going to sort by username real quick so we can differentiate between some of them. So admin, that's my current username. So all these processes right here are ones that have been started by my login credentials. After that, we've got DWN1. Looks like a desktop Windows manager. That's going to be important to Microsoft stuff. Local service, network service, and system. And then some other stuff, user mode, font, driver, host, that we're not going to worry about right now because fonts. But so I can probably go in more in depth in these. This is a whole nother topic for a whole nother video, is credentials and how credentials are authenticated against in Windows. So we've got CPU here. This is just kind of showing you what percentage of the CPU is being used. Okay, so for example, the system idle process, this just consumes nothing, literally. It's just an idle process that is the rest of the CPU. So everything below that right now is running on the CPU, and this is not running because it's nothing. And then everything else really isn't taking up much. All right, let's get into memory real quick. So for memory, we can sort by memory and see which applications are not taking up very much memory. So this is actually RAM. So this is physical memory, although if you use up all your RAM, it could get into page files. But memory is one of those crazy topics that we could probably go on another day. If you want a video on that, let me know in the comments below. As memory is a very interesting, complex topic. So anyways, this is actual memory, including paged memory, I believe. So let's just sort by the most. So this one's Windows Desktop Windows Manager. This is currently consuming 43 megabytes. This is kilobytes, like I said before. And then description. Now, this is really useful because not everything, but most of your named processes are going to have a description. And you'll notice that most items on your hard drive actually do. So if I go to, let me find something here. Let's go back to our C drive. Windows System 32, because there's all kinds of fun applications in here, and we're just going to scroll down to maybe this one. Right click, and we're going to go to properties, and you can do this for all kinds of stuff. And you're going to notice that if we go to details, there is a file description. This is a Windows command processor. And then there's a lot more details into here. We can get more into this another day if you want. Let me know about a video. Like I said before, So if we are to go into run this process right here, we are running cmd.exe, which is command prompt, Windows command processor, and go over to here and look for command prompt Windows command processor. So that's where this gets its description from. When developers write an application, generally they want to give you a description so that way you can know what it's running. This is really helpful when troubleshooting and trying to find viruses and stuff on your system, because then you can know exactly what you have, what you don't have, and what it's doing. You know, if I go, svc host.exe, what in the world could this be running? Oh, host process for Windows services. If it's for Windows services, it's probably all right. Now, I will say a developer could put something malicious here and say whatever they want, but we're not going to worry too much about that right at this time. So this is just a nice, helpful thing right there. Services, this is a whole other topic for another day. It's nice that it's included in Task Manager because it makes it an easy way to get to it. And some of these services, as you can see, have a processor ID associated with them because they will be over here in processes running somewhere. So this is associated with a specific process running somewhere in here. Now you're not going to see that actual service running in here, but one of these processes is being run or associated with this specific process right here. And that's going to be true for everything. So you notice that, like, for example, these 4 items right here all have the same process ID. That's probably because these all depend on or are associated with the same process. But if you want another video on services and specifically, let me know. Let me cover a couple more things here real quick. Another couple things you can do with Task Manager is always on top. So when Task Manager is set as always on top, meaning I can move things around behind it, but I can't get rid of it unless I minimize it. So this is useful if you're running weird full screen applications or an application doesn't want you to let Task Manager show above it, then you can enable that option and it will do that. Another option we've got here is hide when minimized. So if I minimize it, you'll see it disappeared from my thing over here. However, it's just hidden, hiding over here. And we can go restore, or I believe you can double click on that. Yup. And it'll restore it. So we can uncheck that again. You can also uncheck that option. That's just minimizing it when you're using it. There's a couple other advanced options in here that we'll get into in a second. But first thing I want to show you is this explorer.exe. Sometimes your Windows GUI will get buggy and cause you issues, and you can actually eliminate that by minimizing this right here or getting rid of it. So if we go end task, and yes, we want to end the process, you'll notice my Windows GUI has disappeared. Okay, GUI is a graphical user interface. You'll hear me use that word all the time. Like I said, I'm going to try to explain things. So graphical user interface, it's what makes everything look pretty. However, now that we've gotten rid of it, we might want to be able to get it back. You'll notice that your Windows R key will not work to bring up a run box, but we can go to File, Run New Task, and run explorer.exe and click OK, and it will bring it back. Yay! So that's one thing that's nice about this, is you can get a run box off of this right here and run things when you're missing your Windows GUI. All right, a couple more things while we're here in the details. I'm just going to right click on this right here, and we're going to notice that there's a bunch of different things I can do on one of these processes. So I'm actually going to open up something like Edge, so that way we can play with Edge. So we're going to notice that we're going to have a Microsoft Edge. Where are you? There we are. Thing right here, process. So we can right click on this, and we've got a couple different options. We've got end task, and so this will this will pretty much stop the process and close the window. We've got end process tree. So like I was talking about earlier with children processes, a process can have other processes running underneath it. So a process that starts a process, the process that was started by that process is a child process. Kind of complex, not really. Let me say that better. So if I am a process and I start another process, that process is my child. There we go. That makes sense. We can also set priority, and this is going to, like if I set it to real time, then this is going to change its priority in terms of how much Microsoft processor it's using and other resources. It gives it priority access. And so if you have something that you don't care about and you just want it to run in the background, but you got more important things, you can assign your more important processes more higher priority, and your less important processes lesser priority. Setting in affinity, this pretty much allows you to select which processors it runs on. As you can see, I've only got one processor in this virtual machine right now, so we're going to allow it to run on just that one or all processors. If I had more processors, I could give it only specific processors for it to run on, and this is if you had, like, for example, a quad-core or an octa-core or a hexa-core processor, something along those lines, then you would have more CPUs or processors here in this thing, and you could select those. There's a couple other things in here. Like, for example, we can go and see, we can go over to services. It's not connected to any services, so we're just over here in services. We're not going to worry about that. So you can get to services from there. Let's see if we can get to one of these. 4700. Let's see if we can find 4700 over here in my process ID. 4700. Look at that. So if we go down here now and we go to services, you can see it is running with that service. Ta-da! Yay! All right. So we'll go back to here. Go back to Microsoft Edge. Where are you? There we are. Nope. And you can see it's already opening up more child processes. I don't know if that's what CP stands for, because every application has a different way of naming stuff. But we've got our main Microsoft Edge process. So let's go ahead and analyze the wait chain. And, well, there's nothing waiting on it. Or things that are using resources that won't let Edge continue. This is more useful for troubleshooting stuff when things aren't responding. But we're not going to, and you can always click on more about wait chains and bring up a web browser, and Microsoft has some nice documentation here that they'll explain more about that. Okay, so you can also do a couple other things here. You can open the file location. Where is it located? Oh, look, Microsoft Edge right there. Oh, it looks like Microsoft Edge CP might actually be another application that runs, which is, it's a content process. So these are probably the individual tabs and other data that it's using. But anyway, so we found the file. And so we're going to go take a look at some other things. You can go to properties. Now this properties right here is the same as going to the file location and opening up properties on the file. You'll notice that these are the exact same things through and through, literally no changes. So that just gets you to the properties of the file itself, which is really nice because you don't have to go to the file location to go to properties. You can also search for it online like we examined earlier. This one opens it up over here and goes Microsoft Edge.exe. Oh, look, it's web browser. Yay. We can do this for some other things as well. Oh, let's go search online, and it's going to go shell host experience, and we probably don't want that first one, but this answers.microsoft, that might have something interesting. And actually, a lot of these aren't that great sites. Social TechNet, Microsoft.com. That's probably a reputable source. You might be able to go to that and read the thing. Oh, let's not close that yet. So that's all that for you. UAC virtualization. So UAC is a topic for another day. Stands for User Account Control. It's the way that Microsoft manages logons and authentications of their stuff. You can change how fast your performance things over here update. We can go really high, and so you notice it's going to go tick, 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 tick as it goes across. Or we can go to really low, and it's going to take forever for updates to appear, and they're not going to be as fast, but it won't use as much CPU processing power to watch all those things. Or you can just pause it all together. You can also double click to, if you want to view just a specific thing, we can double click on over here and just watch our memory and go put this in the corner. Yay! If that's what you want to do. Yeah. So anyways, that's Windows Task Manager. If you want any other videos on anything you saw or liked in this video, or think there's something we could cover for another video, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.